Johnny Talk Sports in with the Week 5 NFL predictions. Last week, I went 11-4, which for the season, I am 43-19-1, which is 68% as far as accuracy is concerned. We couldn't get the Steelers and the Titans last week due to the COVID-19 outbreak within the Titans organization. Now, before I get into my Week 5 NFL predictions, I do want to address very quickly the news that happened yesterday in the NFL. And that was the Houston Texans have fired head coach and general manager Bill O Brien. And Texans fans have wanted this for a long time now. It felt like every single week almost that the Texans fans have wanted Bill O'Brien to be fired. Bill O'Brien, he seemed to get to the playoffs with ease at some points, but he just couldn't lead the Texans to get past the divisional round. And hopefully with whoever the next Texans head coach is going to be, can get the Texans past that hump of the divisional round. Now, as far as who I think it could be, I would anticipate Eric Bieniemy getting a phone call and an interview. I think Eric Bieniemy is going to be the head coaching hire of the offseason. And two other teams I think are going to easily let go of their head coaches by the end of the season are the Atlanta Falcons and the New York Jets. And I think Bieniemy is going to be phone called by all three of these teams. And the question is going to be, which team can offer Eric Bieniemy the most money, and what also could be the best potential for Eric Bieniemy. Because someone like Eric Bieniemy, he can expand the playbook for Deshaun Watson. So that could be an advantage that the Texans could have. Is that Bieniemy's offensive schemes, it can expand Deshaun Watson as a quarterback. However, the Falcons, they have the most talented roster. Despite the defense not being good at all, their offense, it's still really solid because they have Matt Ryan at quarterback. Although, if they were to hire Bieniemy, I feel like Eric Bieniemy would want his own quarterback and not Matt Ryan. So that could be a concern there for the Falcons. That could be why Arthur Blank may not want to hire Bieniemy. You also have two talented receivers. You have probably easily top 20 receivers in the National Football League in Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley. So there's some talent for Bieniemy to use within the Falcons offense. And you also, not sure if you're going to have Todd Gurley next season, but Todd Gurley, he's been doing solid so far. I just think depending on how Todd Gurley does the rest of the season will determine if the Falcons will keep Todd Gurley. But maybe if Bieniemy was the coach of the Falcons, maybe he'll want to draft a running back in the first round, kind of get your Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And for the Jets, I just can't see Eric Bieniemy wanting to take the Jets coaching job, because the Jets, I think it's going to be a dumpster fire no matter who is the head coach, because there's really not much to offer for the Jets, with the exception of maybe Le'Veon Bell. And Sam Darnold, he still has some potential, though. I just can't see a coordinator that has a coordinator like Eric Bieniemy wanting to be the coach of the Jets. I just can't see that. So I think right now, as far as Eric Bieniemy, he's either going to be the head coach of the Houston Texans or the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons in 2021. So let's get to my Week 5 NFL predictions. As always, we begin the NFL picks with the Thursday Night Football game. And this week, Thursday Night Football features the Buccaneers and the Bears. The Bears suffered their first loss of the season last week against the Colts. And despite the scoreboard looking close as it looks, it wasn't that really close. I think the Colts dominated this game pretty handily from start to finish. Because the Colts defense, right now, the best defense in the National Football League. Well, the Buccaneers, they are just in sync right now, and the connection with Tom Brady and Mike Evans, it is starting to heat up. And I think if the Bears want to win this game, they have got to shut down Mike Evans. because Mike Evans is going to be the top target receiver. And I would doubt that Chris Godwin is going to play in this game, because Chris Godwin has been battling injuries all throughout this early portion of the season. But I'm going to pick Tampa Bay to win this game. I just think that even if Mike Evans gets shut down in this game, I think it's going to open the floodgates for another wide receiver, like maybe Scotty Miller or maybe even Cameron Brate. Because I think Cameron Brate is going to step up in the red zone with O.J. Howard being out for the season. So I see those two being X factors in this matchup. So I will take Tampa Bay to win this one. Next, we have the Carolina Panthers and the Atlanta Falcons. Falcons 0-4. The Panthers are on a 2-game winning streak, and Teddy Bridgewater seems to get a hold of this offense. And if the Panthers can keep winning games, I think they're right back in the thick of things, especially with Christian McCaffrey coming back from injury in a couple of weeks. So if the Panthers win this game, they're right back into it. They're right back into the division, I believe. So I think the NFC South could still be up for grabs between the Saints, Buccaneers, and even the Panthers. And I think this is going to be the last straw for the Falcons. Although I think it could be. I just think maybe Arthur Blank is just too soft and he doesn't want to fire Dan Quinn just because of what the Falcons did in 2016. But you got to keep in mind, though, the reason why the Falcons got to the Super Bowl mainly was because of offensive coordinator Kyle Shanahan. And Kyle Shanahan and Dan Quinn, they both just kind of gave up after they were up 28-3 in that Super Bowl. And believe it or not, but the Falcons are 25-29 ever since that blunder in Super Bowl 51. So not even above 500. And it's about time that Dan Quinn gets fired from the Atlanta Falcons. And the Falcons need to bring in somebody that has an offensive mind. I just think that a defensive-minded coach isn't the thing for the Falcons, because the Falcons' defense, it's always been atrocious. In fact, it's been atrocious, I would say, since maybe 2010. I think it's been atrocious. It had one good season in 2017, and of course, right now, there's injuries going on within the Falcons. I mean, Julio Jones injured, Calvin Ridley was injured and he's questionable for the game this past weekend against the Packers. Russell Gage was in the concussion protocol. So it just seems like that Arthur Blank is just using, if he doesn't fire Dan Quinn with the Falcons lose on Sunday and they fall to 0-5, it's clear that he thinks that Dan Quinn deserves his job just because of the Falcons going to the Super Bowl in 2016. Either that, or he's going to use the injuries as the excuse again. But I'm going to take the Panthers to win convincingly. And I think Teddy Bridgewater is going to have a big game against this awful Falcons defense. I mean, just look. The Falcons gave up 3 touchdowns last night to Robert Tonyan. Robert Tonyan. And if I were you, I would start any Carolina Panthers wide receiver on my fantasy team, especially Robbie Anderson. Because Robbie Anderson, right now, I think he's having, low-key, one of the best fantasy seasons. I think he's the biggest sleeper, the biggest steal in fantasy that I've personally ever had. So I'm going to take the Panthers. Next, we have the Buffalo Bills and the Tennessee Titans. The Titans, signs are pointing towards the Titans being able to play this week against the Bills. Signs point to this game being played. While Josh Allen is playing at an MVP type level. The Titans, they may be undefeated, but just look at the teams they've beaten. Broncos, Jaguars, and Vikings. And they won all those games the same way. On a game-winning field goal by Steven Gostkowski. And I think it's going to take the right team to humble the Titans a bit. And I think the Bills are the team. I mean, even if we saw the Steelers and the Titans play last week, I think the Steelers just run right all over the Titans. And I think this is going to be the same thing. I think Josh Allen has another big game. Because the Buffalo Bills, I think, they seem like one of the more complete teams in the National Football League. I know that nobody really talks about the Bills being a superior team yet. but I think they are going to be, especially if they can beat the Chiefs next week. But although, could the Bills be looking ahead to the Chiefs on Thursday Night Football next week? Could that be where the Titans could maybe steal this win from them? I don't think so. I think that even if the Bills, if they kind of sleep this game off, I think they would still win this one. Especially because this is the toughest team the Titans have played so far. So I'm going to take Buffalo to win this one. Next, we have the Raiders and the Chiefs. I don't know what's happened with the Raiders. I mean, they started off 2-0, and now they've lost 2 in a row to the Patriots and the Bills. While the Chiefs, they are looking like the Chiefs that we know, especially with a convincing win against the Patriots this past Monday. And their defense starting to step up too. The Chiefs defense, they contained Lamar Jackson, and they handled their business against the Patriots, even though they were pretty much dealing with third-string quarterback Jarrett Stidham, backup quarterback Brian Hoyer. Still, I think a defensive performance like that is going to build some confidence, especially with 2 good defense performances back-to-back. And I think that this should be no different. I think the Chiefs win this game very convincingly. I think the offense will be dominant for the Kansas City Chiefs once again this week. I'm going to take them to move to 5-0 on the season. Next, we have the Cardinals and the Jets. And I don't know what's really much to explain here. The Jets are struggling to win a game, and now it turns out Sam Darnold has problems in his shoulder. Well, the Cardinals, they're on a 2-game losing streak. But fortunately for them, they get the winless Jets. And unfortunately for the Jets, you get a Cardinals team led by Kyler Murray that is hungry for a win after starting the season 2-0, and they've lost the last 2 games. I think it's going to get really ugly real fast for the Jets, and I think the Cardinals will win convincingly. Although it's being speculated that Le'Veon Bell, he could return from the IR this week, so maybe things are starting to look up a little bit for the Jets, but I just can't see Le'Veon Bell being completely effective in this Jets offense. So I'm going to take the Cardinals to win this game very convincingly. I'm going to say by at least 2 or 3 scores at the minimum. I think this Cardinals team is going to be very hungry to win this one, and they will. Cardinals in a blowout. Next, we have the Eagles and the Steelers. The Steelers are coming off their bye week. Although I do have a little bit of concerns for them moving forward of playing 13 consecutive games throughout the end of the regular season without a bye week, because they've already had their bye week with the Titans being postponed with the Steelers last week. Well, the Eagles, they picked up their first win of the season last week against a injury-depleted 49ers team. Could that win build some confidence? I think it could if you're playing almost any other team on the schedule this week. I think the Steelers defense, I think they're going to be able to take advantage of the Eagles being depleted within their offensive line. I think they're going to be able to get to Carson Wentz easily, force him into bad decisions, and I think the Steelers defense is going to be a huge factor on why they win this game. I think the Eagles, though, I think they could keep this one close. Although with the way that we've seen the Steelers handle their defense, especially when it comes to running the football, I just think Miles Sanders, I think he may be ineffective in this game. So I'm going to take Pittsburgh to win this one. Although I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles won, though, especially with the confidence win they had this past weekend. And they even tied against the Bengals, so somewhat confident the last 2 weeks. Still in the lead in the NFC East. But I think the Steelers will win this matchup. Next, we have the Rams and the football team in Washington. For the Washington football team, a 3-game losing streak. Although Antonio Gibson has scored a touchdown in each of the last 3 games. While the Rams, they let the Giants in the game. Like, they played it close with the New York Giants, one of the bottom 4 teams in the league. And the Rams offense, I think, needs to step up here. I mean, they really stepped up in their somewhat comeback against the Bills until the Bills won a very controversial pass interference call. But I think the Rams are going to get it back together this week. I think they're going to beat the football team pretty handily. I'm going to say by at least 17 points. But if you're the Washington football team, get Antonio Gibson more touches because he seems to be the best player on offense right now, especially in the passing game because Antonio Gibson, he was effective in the football team's passing game last week against the Ravens. And get Terry McLaurin going in the passing game as well. Find your number one target in Terry McLaurin. I'm going to pick the Rams, though. But we'll see if the football team, if they keep it close in this one. Next, we've got the Bengals and the Ravens. The Ravens with a nice response against the football team last week, while the Bengals got their first win of the season, and I think there is more confidence for Joe Burrow moving forward. Joe Burrow, he has thrown for 300 yards in the past 3 games. He's going to have 300 passing yards for the Bengals to even have a chance in this game. But I think the Ravens, ever since they lost the Chiefs, I think things are going to keep moving forward because the Chiefs are the Ravens' kryptonite anyway. I think the Ravens are going to have a big game. I think Lamar Jackson's going to have a big game in the air and on the ground. I think Lamar Jackson will be an unstoppable force. And I like the Ravens to win this one. Next, we have the Jaguars and the Texans. The Texans, first game since the firing of Bill O Brien. Romeo Crennel is going to be the interim head coach. While the Jaguars, their offense seems to be showing some signs despite losing to the Bengals last week when DJ Chark is in the lineup. When DJ Chark is in the lineup, it seems like Gardner Minshew's a better quarterback. The Jaguars are a better offense. And I think the Texans, this is a game where I have to pick somebody because this is probably going to be one of the least interesting games of the week. I'm going to pick the Texans redeeming themselves. I picked them 2 weeks in a row now, but I think they're going to finally get their first win of the year. So I'm going to take Houston in this matchup. Next, we have the Dolphins and the 49ers. The 49ers, George Kittle returned to the lineup last week, and he was dominant in the 49ers passing game. He was the dominant target for Nick Mullins last week. And the Dolphins, they played the Seahawks pretty close. You got to give them credit. And right now, Ryan Fitzpatrick's done solid these last couple of weeks. In fact, the Dolphins as a whole, despite only having one win this season, they have been pretty close in some of their games this season. They played New England pretty close in the opener. They beat the Jaguars Thursday night. And they played the Seahawks really close this past weekend. And I think that with the 49ers being depleted with injuries still, and I'm not really sure if Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be the starting quarterback this week for the 49ers, but I'm going to pick an upset here. I think the Miami Dolphins are going to pull off the upset in this one. I just think with Byron Jones coming back into the lineup, I think the Dolphins' defense is going to be a lot better. And I think this will be kind of an upset because there always seems to be a game where the 49ers, where they're a significant favorite in a game. Well, at least a Kyle Shanahan type of team. Because the Falcons had this problem too. The Falcons, when Kyle Shanahan was their offensive coordinator, seemed like they lost a game they weren't supposed to every year. And I think this is going to be that one where the 49ers, they're anticipated to win this one, but I think they lose it. I think the Dolphins, they pick up the upset in this matchup. I think Ryan Fitzpatrick has some confidence despite losing last week. And I think the Dolphins will win this matchup, pull off the upset. Next, we have the Colts and the Browns. The Browns are 3-1 on the season, while the Colts, they are starting to pick it up. I still want to see if Phillip Rivers and T.Y. Hilton, if they can get that connection going. I don't know. I feel like T.Y. Hilton, he's due for a breakout game. While the Browns, they look a lot better when Odell Beckham is more involved in the offense. See, I don't see why the Browns have yet to establish that they're 10 times of a better football team when Odell Beckham is involved significantly in the offense. Although my concern is it seems like when Odell Beckham gets heavily involved in the offense, he doesn't seem to do much the next game. And that is something that I would worry if I was a Browns fan, is with Odell Beckham being so involved last week that they don't involve him too much in the offense this week. I'm going to pick the Colts to win. I just think that Colts defense, I think that's going to be the difference in the matchup. Especially with the Browns having a big win last week against the Cowboys. So I'm going to take Indianapolis in this matchup. I just want to see if T.Y. Hilton, he has a breakout game. I think he's due for one. It could be this week, especially with the Browns still being depleted at the secondary position. And the Colts defense, I think, could stop the running game easily now that Nick Chubb is now on the IR with a knee injury. So I'm going to take Indianapolis. Although I will declare this, though. If the Browns can win this week, I will officially be sold on the Cleveland Browns. Because a Browns win this week, they would start their season off at 4-1, despite losing in the opener to the Ravens. But we'll see, though. I'm still not sold on the Browns yet, despite being the Cowboys. The Cowboys should honestly be 0-4. And speaking of the Cowboys, our next game is the Giants and the Cowboys. Jason Garrett's return to Dallas. All right. Now, Jason Garrett's now the offensive coordinator for the New York Giants. Now, the Giants, right now, they look like a bottom feeder in the NFL, as I've established already multiple times in this video. While the Cowboys, they should be 0-4. And this week I have to pick someone. Though, this would be a lot better of a matchup if you had both these teams at 0-4. Now, the Cowboys, they still are in the NFC East. Dak Prescott, though, leading the NFL in passing yards. Although most of this is in garbage time, and it's when he's trying to come back and the Cowboys are playing from behind. I feel like if the Cowboys, they had a defense, Dak Prescott would be the MVP favorite right now. Just based off his stats alone. And we see how effective Amari Cooper is at home. We see how effective the Cowboys offense is at home. I mean, we saw CeeDee Lamb really have a breakout game this past weekend for the Cowboys. And I think we're going to see that again. I think Dak Prescott, I mean, if you remember the opener last season, Dak Prescott had a monster game. And I think Dak Prescott will have a monster game again. And I think the Cowboys will win this convincingly. I think it's going to be very encouraging for the Cowboys. Kind of an encouraging win for the Cowboys. Kind of clap for encouragement here if you're a Cowboys fan. So I'm going to take Dallas. Next we have the Broncos and the Patriots. Broncos right now they're with Brett Rippon, the third-string quarterback. And for the Patriots, it is unknown if Cam Newton will be able to play this week due to his positive COVID-19 test over the weekend. So it's uncertain if they're going to start, if Cam Newton will be able to play. And if he's not, it's uncertain. Are they going to stick with Brian Hoyer, the starting quarterback, like it was last week against the Chiefs? Or are they going to go with Jarrett Stidham? And luckily for the Patriots, I think this dilemma doesn't matter this week. Since you're going up against the Broncos, a team their only win of the season last week was last week against the Jets. So I'm going to take the Patriots win this one very convincingly. I think it's probably going to be a low-scoring game if they do decide that, well, if they have no choice than to start either Brian Hoyer or Jarrett Stidham. I think the Patriots, if it's with Cam Newton, they'll probably win by at least 21 points. And if it is with Hoyer or Stidham, I'm looking at probably a 17-13 type of game. Because the Broncos, they've at least shown some heart in some of their games. They played close against the Titans and the Steelers so far this season. So maybe the Broncos defense could keep the Denver football team in this game. But I think the Patriots win this game in the end. Now for Sunday Night Football, we have the Vikings and the Seahawks. The Vikings picked up their first win of the season last week against the Texans, while the Seahawks and Russell Wilson, quite a close battle against the Dolphins last week, but playing at an MVP level along with Josh Allen, along with even Kyler Murray, even with Pat Mahomes. And the Seahawks defense, I think, is really lacking at this point. And the Seahawks offense is carrying the Seahawks football team right now. And for the Vikings to win this game, I think you've got to get Adam Thielen involved in this offense. I mean, Justin Jefferson, he's had 2 good weeks these past 2 weeks. I think if you get those two involved in your passing game, the Vikings will have a chance to win this one. But unfortunately, I think the Seahawks defense is going to finally have a week where they step it up. I think the Seahawks defense is going to have their first real good game of the season. I'm going to take the Seahawks to win this one very convincingly. I think that the Vikings offense will struggle. I think maybe they'll get a couple of touchdowns on the board. Maybe we'll see Adam Thielen or Justin Jefferson accumulate some stats in garbage time maybe. But I think the Seahawks win this game. It's just hard to pick against the Seahawks when Russell Wilson is playing the way that he is. And finally, we have the Monday Night Football game between the Chargers and the Saints. The Chargers will be without Austin Eckler for the next, I believe it's 6 weeks, with a hamstring injury. And the Saints, could Michael Thomas be coming back to the lineup this week? So I think this matchup, it could low-key be the most interesting one of the week. Because you have a rookie quarterback on the Chargers in Justin Herbert, as he is right now currently the starting quarterback due to Tyrod Taylor's injury and because of the Chargers team doctor's negligence. And for the Saints, I did say that last week that we could see some vibes of the Lions and the Chiefs from last year. Well, the Lions get off to an early lead, but then the Saints come back and win in the end. That's exactly what happened. I think if Michael Thomas comes back in the lineup, I think the Saints will dominate. But if he's not, I still think the Saints will win, but I think it's going to be much closer. Because Justin Herbert, he played really well against the Buccaneers last week. And I would arguably say that if Austin Eckler doesn't go down in this game, I think the Chargers end up winning this game. In fact, it seems like the offense for the Chargers right now, it's try to find your running back for a screen pass or look for Keenan Allen. Hunter Henry hasn't been involved in the offense as much this season as I'm sure the Chargers would have wanted him to be. But now with Austin Eckler being out for the next 4 to 6 weeks, probably 6, I would lean towards, you got to look for Joshua Kelly and for Justin Jackson to step up in this Chargers running game. Because Aaron Jones ran all over the Saints defense a couple of weeks ago. And they gave up some yards to Adrian Peterson last week. So I think the Chargers running game, if they really rise to the occasion, if they take some pressure off Justin Herbert, I think the Chargers have a good chance to win this game. But unfortunately, I just think it won't be good enough. The Chargers may have a really solid defense, really solid secondary, very good corners, decent pass rush. I think the Saints will win this game. But I think it's probably going to be close. I think the Chargers, they'll stay in the game. I think the Saints will win 27-21. And those are my picks for the week for review. I like the Buccaneers, Panthers, Bills, Chiefs, Cardinals, Steelers, Rams, Ravens, Texans, Dolphins, Colts, Cowboys, Patriots, Seahawks, and Saints this week. We have the Lions and the Packers on a bye this week. So only 15 games to predict this week. Bye weeks are starting to begin. We had the bye weeks begin last week due to unfortunate circumstances. But 15 games this week. Comment your picks down below. And as always, like, share, and subscribe. And I will talk to you next time.